Okay, stay a while. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name's Annalisa, and I'm an intern at the Grolier this semester. And tonight I'm going to be giving the introductions for our poetry reading featuring Leticia Priebe Rocha, Sarah Kersey, and Amanda Gunn. And to mix things up, the readers will go in reverse alphabetical order, and I will give the introductions at the beginning of the reading. Before that, I just want to ask you if you have a cell phone, just to make sure you silence it so it doesn't disrupt the reading. Thank you for doing that. And for the introductions, instead of reading the poet's bio, I just wrote like a little blurb about one poem from each collection, because that really stood out to me. So first is Leticia Priebe Rocha. So I was thinking a lot about Leticia's poem, A Matter of Time, especially the line, I keep trying to feed them the part of me that loves you. And just like, it made me think about how like love is so powerful and all encompassing, and it's like an entity separate from ourselves. And I love how this poem doesn't diminish or minimize the impact of love. And the poem ends on an image of birds humming and whistling, and the speaker wanting to feed the birds the parts of themselves. That loves the you of the poem. And just that ending I felt was really both stunning and haunting. And then the second reader we have is Sarah Kersey. And one poem that stood out from Sarah's chapbook is Building Blocks. The poem explores orthography, hopefully I'm saying that right, in language. It's a short poem, but it says a lot in a few words, which is an impressive feat. And the last two lines of the poem stuck with me long after reading them, and they are, God infused us with his vocabulary. Why are we so afraid? And I was thinking about how we're so lucky to call things what they are, to have the language to name things like joy and love, but also violence and tragedy, and the ability to name something and to confront it as it is, and the fear that can bring. And Sarah does a brilliant job of conveying the power and possibilities that language holds. And last but not least is Amanda Gunn. I was really moved by the poem Go North from Amanda's collection. The imagery is vivid and places the reader in the scene. Images like a bus station, brick, a woolen coat, and pound cake. And when I read it, I don't feel like I'm reading the poem, but I'm experiencing the poem. And there's so much being said by the people in this poem without there being any dialogue. And once again, another fabulous ending that I'm stunned by. You will linger some days in the doorlight of a church. You will make yourself nearly whole. This poem reads to me as one about hope and about trying again, and how sometimes effort and just the act of trying is enough sometimes. Thank you again, and let's give a round of applause for the poets.
Hi, everybody. Ooh, can you hear me? Is this good? Excellent. It feels really special to be kind of on this side of the Grolier, because I've been coming here for a couple of years and I love the readings that they put on. And it's been a dream of mine to actually perform here. So it feels really, really special to be sharing this night with you all. And I thank you for coming out and listening to poetry. I'm gonna throw my plans out the window a little bit, and I'm going to read the poem that Annalisa mentioned first. And this is from my chapbook, In Lieu of Heartbreak, This Is Like, which kind of came up out of my first big romantic heartbreak, which I experienced as a grown-up, which meant that I needed to go to my job and just be really, really sad all the time. And it really unearthed all of the different kinds of heartbreak that I'd experienced in my life. And this chapbook is really kind of the journey that I went through in processing that and finding and accessing the well of love that I have within me. So I will start with a somewhat of a heartbreak poem. This is called A Matter of Time. A Matter of Time. You are an amalgamation of jigsaw pieces that don't quite fit together. You hate yourself for it. It's palpable. I love you. I dreamt once that you introduced me to your family in the desert, more precisely, an amusement park in the desert. I only remember the heat and children screaming from roller coasters and your mother declaring with enough certainty to jostle me awake, he loves you. He's always loved you. I thought the last poem I wrote was the last poem I'd ever write about you. You look so much like your father, and I look so much like my mother. She told me once, tears in her eyes, People who love each other should never be apart. We weren't built for that. Lately, I've been taking great pleasure in opening up my bedroom window and listening to the birds. I know nothing about birds, their humming and whistling. I keep trying to feed them the part of me that loves you. They haven't taken it yet. So, this next one, a little bit of context. I was born in Brazil, in São Paulo, and I immigrated to Miami, Florida when I was 9 years old. And so, as somebody that was raised speaking a different language and that learned English, I think a lot about translation and the untranslatable. And so, this poem delves into that a little bit and some other stuff, as poems do. Lost in. Though unquestionably it was vermin, I couldn't do it. Run over the rat scurrying across the street. A slice of me wanted to hit the gas. Driving away from the averted casualty, I searched to name that slice. To run over in Portuguese is atropelar, a harsh utterance efficient in its violence. There's no way to say I miss you in Portuguese. There's only saudade, an it that you possess for something, someone. Finding photographs of streets I once walked, taken by my mother years before my birth. Googling the city of my first childhood, the top result, a bridge built 2 years after my flight. Losing my love for Pizza Hut, following our last meal as a family before my father left. Saudade. A horrible man once told me, guaranteed that atheists are fools, for every person will someday be brought to their knees by something so dire they will want God to be real. Want, not need. I didn't understand that. Didn't understand that a want could be greater than a need, that I could become want. Driving past a tree, in the curved ridges of its trunk, I saw the Mother Mary, her leaves screaming in the wind. Saudade. A bowling ball of longing wedged in the middle of my chest, minuscule cracks pushed into ribs, lungs flattening, heart lopsided, beating for skies that we will never see. I'm going to start reading some new stuff. I have 2 prose poems for you. If you've read my work, I'm very meticulous, nearing obsessive about line breaks. And when I started taking a course with Jose Hernandez Diaz, who's a great prose poet, and I wanted to challenge myself, but I wasn't convinced that I'd be able to do it and kind of let go of the line breaks. But turns out I have a lot to say, and I've really enjoyed kind of delving into prose poetry. This poem is a morning after the most recent presidential election poem. So it's a little angry, just a little. I wake up to 2 cosmic jokes on my phone. 1, a racist rapist with 34 felony counts was elected 47th President of the United States. 2, my mother's abuser requested to follow me on Instagram after over a decade of no contact. I'm still looking for the punchline. I tell my therapist it feels like waking up in hell. I don't even believe in hell, though I have longed for its existence. There is a sweetness in indulging the fantasy that justice exists somewhere, even if not in this life. My first time in New York, right outside the largest Macy's in the world, a man in the crowd deftly brandished a camera hanging around his neck to snap a sneaky shot of my breasts. I blinked and he was gone. In the treachery of memory, his face bubbles into that of every man who has ever hurt me. I stayed silent, kept walking. Who was I going to tell? The cops? I hear they're very busy. That's what they told me, at least, back when I called them to rescue my mother from the man who would beat her. I was silly then, silly enough to believe any man could save me. Instead, I fantasize about beating him to death with a hot pink baseball bat on one of the 10 floors of the giant Macy's. The performer in me would want to do it on the first floor for the biggest audience. The cosmetic section is such lovely chaos of perfectly packaged femininity, clouds of dainty perfumes, delicate faux flower arrays, every shade of lipstick under the sun, the perfect backdrop to purpling skin, red splatters of blood, pink guts. What can I say? New York brings out the romantic in me. This is all just a little joke, of course, a silly little joke. I have no intent to hurt myself or others. After all, I am no man. Would you look at that? I found the punchline. Um, this next one, also a prose poem. I don't know if anybody here thinks about bears ever. Um, I'm not a very nature-y person, so it's not like I've ever encountered one, but I have heard a saying about different kinds of bears and what you're supposed to do if you do encounter one. And it goes something like, if it's brown, lay down, because if you find a brown bear, you should play dead. If it's black, fight back, because I guess you punch a black bear in the face, it's gonna not bother you anymore, which I guess. And if it's white, good night, because if you're within, sight of a polar bear, it's over. And apparently they're very ferocious. And so this poem is about a little polar bear plushie that I have, and it's from my Uncle Johnny. Ode to my Coca-Cola polar bear plush. What's the saying about polar bears? If it's white, good night. I can't place the ruthlessness of your non-plush counterparts on your goofy, smiling face. Can I fault their ferocity in a barren, disappearing ecosystem? Oh, Coca-Cola polar bear plush, do you know that the bottle you proudly hold in your gloved paw feeds the destruction of your fellow bears? I know. Enough with the climate spiral. You're so much more than a symbol for doom. You are a beacon of Brazilianness in your yellow and green jersey, blue shorts. When packing up our lives, you were one of the few possessions chosen to fly over the ocean to the promise of America. You came into my life when I was 2, a gift from my Uncle Johnny, who showered me with affection. In all of our photos together, he held me like a precious thing, piercing green eyes shining with love, boyish smile stretched from ear to ear. Oh, Coca-Cola polar bear plush, could you feel that you are in the arms of a complicated man? Johnny, loving father, husband, brother, uncle, malandro, bandido, woman beater, criminal, murdered as a hit for sleeping with the wife of a friend who was in prison. Oh, Coca-Cola polar bear plush, I am all grown up now and cannot be shielded from the monster of truth. I must confess that I have shown every man I wanted to love a few episodes of The Sopranos. They are always baffled by my need to understand the mafiosos on screen. They don't know that I am searching for proof of a loving man, searching for an uncle, searching for a father, searching for a warmth that transcends this barren, disappearing ecosystem. Oh, Coca-Cola polar bear plush, you are everything wrong with this world. You are everything I love. Okay, I've got one more for you. Jumping back into the chapbook. And if you've heard me perform before, you've probably heard this poem, because I always like kind of closing out my readings with it. But you'll get what is it called? A behind the scenes look tonight, because the exchange that I kind of describe in the last stanza, in the last few lines, actually happened here after a reading that I went to. And it was a really profound moment, and one of the reasons why I love this place so much and why it feels so special to be here tonight. So this is called Alignment, and it's 3 sonnets. Alignment. 1. I was 5 or 6, one of those tender ages where absolutely nothing made sense, and I was okay with it. A girl in my class made spitting remarks, and I spit back. The teacher told us to be good, make nice, apologize. Grown-ups were always right, so I said my sorries. Something about it hurt, like a piece of rice stuck in my throat. Once home, I burrowed in my mother's lap, her smoldering voice surrounding me. Never apologize when you have done nothing wrong. God himself can come down to earth demanding an apology, and you must look him in the eyes and say, no. I return to that moment every time I pass an animal that has been permanently stilled by a vehicle, like the used-to-be squirrel I swerved from ages ago and still think about. I am incompatible with this world in which one can rob another of motion. I drove by for days, watching as the squirrel became less and less and more remains until it vanished one day without a trace. I kept driving. Days after the first time I apologized without fault, I brought home an injured bird, tearfully watched it fly away when healed. I want so desperately to be good. 2. Though I am unfazed by the sight of blood and have no problem staring down the barrel of a needle, I hate getting blood drawn. My veins are what nurses call a difficult stick, so I am invariably pricked at least twice before the blood starts flowing out of me. I enjoy that part, watching the redness leave my body. This I am almost ashamed of, what it takes to see that I am alive. I often bruise afterwards, but I don't mind those much. Sickly purple reminders that I am perishable. What I can't stand are the apologies, palpable concern that I will pass out from their search for the vein that yields a proper rush. I can't fault the nurses. How could they gauge that I am ill-equipped for those who tiptoe around their taking? I have only known the relentless beating of ocean waves against rock. It's my birthright. Once, my mother and I stood blanketed by the silence of constellations, punctured constantly by crashing waves, the water a gaping mouth before us. She said breezily, "It's a wonder, isn't it, that we don't all just walk right in, get swallowed up?" 3. I didn't travel much growing up, couldn't afford it or the demands of state lines and TSA. On my first flight, disentangled from Spirit Airlines, I hated the first class passengers and their absolute audacity to dress like shit. My mother taught me that my body was all I had, so I'd better honor it with adornment. Without a doubt, My favorite smell in the entire world is that of my own perfume. So what? That's what happens when a child learns that many lives must eventually fit in the void of a suitcase. This poem wasn't about you, and now it is. When we finally meet again in the sleet, I'll ask, how did you get here? You'll laugh like always. I walked. It was so stupid. It doesn't matter how long we take. For half of my life, I wanted to die. That's easy to say now. Tonight, a perfect stranger gifted me, tears welling up in her eyes, hand on my shoulder, the exact words I needed to hear 10 years ago. I know to listen. Be very good to yourself. Be very good to yourself. Thank you very much.
Hi. This is a really nice crowd. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So Residence Time, which is my chapbook that came out in October. I said to Amanda before this started, this is actually the first stop on my book tour, which is really exciting. So a little bit about the title, Residence Time. It has roots. So when you open the book up, it gives the definition of residence time, which is a noun. And it's defined as the average length of time during which a substance, a portion of material, or an object is in a given location or condition, such as adsorption or suspension. To put that in a different way, how long it takes for a substance to fully disperse and disseminate into another substance. So, for instance, typical example that most of us are familiar with, if we have like a cup of hot tea, we want to put a little sugar in it. You stir the sugar up and it dissolves in the water. So the residence time of table sugar is almost instantaneous. It takes a few milliseconds for all of those sugar atoms to just fully disperse in that water. The residence time of sodium, specifically in the ocean. So imagine if you have all the sodium in the ocean, how long that would take to fully disperse in that water. So sodium in the ocean, the residence time is 55 million years. One of our core components as humans is sodium. So specifically for this book, for the things that I am preoccupied with, so I think about everybody that either was cast overboard during the diaspora or voluntarily jumped overboard. Every single person that perished in that ocean is still floating out there because their sodium atoms have not fully dispersed in that water. So that's the headspace that this book is in. And poets say that collections of poems and poems last for a really long time. They have long lives, and poets be saying a lot of shit. But I got to actually experience what that means because I actually just got back from Cape Verde. I speak a little Portuguese, just a little bit. And that was my first time being on the opposite side of the Atlantic and getting to stand on that side of the shore and look out. And it helped me really experience and contextualize my work in a different way that I had not intended when I started this book when I was much younger than I am now. So that's the context of the book. So I'm just going to start reading some poems that I enjoy and I hope you enjoy as well. I'm going to start with a poem kind of towards the back half of the book called Black Mother in Bermuda. I've got a flash for you. God laid some beauty on Bermuda. Still, 7 days is too long to be anywhere unless you're with someone you love. That means you. How many women have you loved in your life, Bobby? 2, 3, 5. I have only ever loved one, my mother. I miss her today. Our love transcended blood. And I miss you today, Bobby. Why aren't you here with me? Do you miss me as much as I miss you, Mr. Kersey? I wish my fucking camera worked. An absolutely gorgeous passenger ship is sailing by. I'll have to remember it, I guess. And I'll remember you the way I remember my mother in my dreams. Next poem is called Exodus Begins. We were not meant to survive the departure. After the deluge, away from the shore, I will lead with a staff during the day. I will pray through my pen at night. I wrote Genesis from what I was told. I will write Exodus from what I live. Everybody will focus on the miracle of the Red Sea, but no one will know how I also freed my mother, who saved me when she sent me down the Nile. At the sea, we crossed our shared deliverance. I'm really bad with talking in between. Yeah, so this book was, well, I'm deciding what to read next. I have a set list, but I'm just like, kind of like you, I'm just kind of just like going with it. So I wrote this book over the course from, I'm trying to remember how old I was now. I'm age 16 and I just turned 31 and I finished the book when I was 30. So about 14 years of life kind of transpired between when it started and when I finished it. And it went through a lot of iterations. I really appreciate the fact that I got to learn how to do things slowly and steadily over time. Yeah, so I'll read another poem now because again, I'm bad with talking in between. This is called Desire Under Influence. A security guard, a former cop, asks if he will see me tomorrow. I say yes to prove life continues for my people. I pick up patient after patient. I serve them, I shield them, and I always have the upper hand. His blue eyes are fully charged tasers the gods possess. In his crosshairs of curiosity, I'm not threatening to him, though he probably loves me how crows sometimes love another, dead, mountable. The emergency brake in my car is engorged. He excuses himself, locks the door on my perimeter to set the limits he's willing to keep. I guess something that is probably useful for the context of this book. My day job is I'm an X-ray technologist. I had to basically come to terms when I was younger because I wanted to be an English teacher and that did not work out and I had to pivot and go into X-ray. And I remember the moment when, because I was feeling kind of sorry for myself about that because I thought there's no way that me taking X-rays all day is in any way, shape, or form compatible with writing. And I learned from, taking poetry courses in community college that simply wasn't true. Lots of really great poets have no ties or little or tenuous ties to academia. And that actually was one of the things that helped me when I was younger to try to keep writing and to keep developing this book. Okay, so now I'm going to read I'm Only a Smoker in My Dreams. The cigarettes are as long as lies. I never tap the ash away. I lose balance. I drag harder. I'm hacking. I'm on the street, horizontal, cracks track like vertebrate railroad ties. I stand on the backs of unknown origin, kin, prone, under the ship, under arrest, under my feet. Breath riles the same tempest, over and over an atmospheric tide. For Annalisa, building blocks. Building blocks. Before there was a word for orthography, Letters spelled words, the way bones articulated joints, and words engineered sentences, the way joints built limbs, and paragraphs compiled a book, the way the arms and legs a body. Their durability was confounding. There was no word called orthopedics. Ortho was a union of conjunctions. God infused us with his vocabulary. Why are we so afraid? I'm gonna pivot and read some things from my full length in progress. We're on year 6, so, hopefully it won't take another 6 years to finish it. I'd like to finish it a little bit faster, but I have control over that, but also I don't have control over that. I feel like if the writers in the room kind of get what that's like. Yeah. The poems decide when they're done. So I'm going to read Sorry, I don't know the page numbers yet. Okay, this one is called How I Loved Jacob After He Wrestled with an Angel. Neither of us told anyone what had occurred. The doctor ordered an x-ray. I didn't like imaging people I know, but you were so patient. I touched your hip, cautiously. I framed it in light like the hand that broke you, then blessed you. The right femoral head didn't articulate with the acetabulum. That's Latin for wine goblet. I imagined your hip was tipsy, your pelvis getting a little head rush when the angel grabbed your neck, forced you down. While in bed, you asked me what it looked like. It looked like something that needed to be fixed, maybe with surgery. You cut me off, calling what you held in your hip God's favor. All I could say to you, the one who refused a cane to hold my hand instead, something so divine shouldn't hurt. I avoided your affection the morning after. Nothing could extinguish your delight. This one called I Am Somebody Else Entirely. We met at the end of a new year. I remember the sweet season. Love unwrinkled itself from its last correspondence. Rain pattering light back to the sun, or excuse me, water pattering back to the sun. What else it could mean for me? How I was anything but plain. How I would risk myself. I smoked too much weed in Park Slope, up somewhere embarrassed as you held my wrists like 2 quivering kites. There was blood the first time we had sex. Your nails were way too long. I bet you were trying to see if I was splintered inside because I was never comfortable talking about the men. After all that blood, I'm still trying to wring these muscles dry of longing. I think that's something you'd love to hear if you heard me. We slow danced to Self-Control by Frank Ocean in my living room. To be dazed and have had someone to hold on to when he sings, I know you gotta leave, leave, leave. If you know, you know. I'm gonna read one more. I'm trying to go find something I haven't really read. Find that poem that I'm just like, do I read this? Oh, this is what I was gonna plan to close with and I forgot. Residence time. I walked with Moses to the edge of the Gulf of Maine. He did not carry the air of salvation. His face had its own fault lines, anger and age. I asked him if he remembered looking into his adoptive mother's face for the first time. He shed a tear and raised his rod. I never believed something or somebody could hold me. Phantom limbs flail as the ocean lifts and folds. Remnants wash over themselves. I finally learned to float. He called out to me, I drowned Egypt. What do you need to bury so you can continue to rest upon the waters above all that wreckage? Thank you. Hello, everyone. Um, oop, can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. Let's see. First, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to hear some poetry, and to thank James and everyone at Grolier for providing this space where we can gather in person in a place that feels real, and spend the night hearing some poetry. So thank you. I'm going to start with a poem. I'm going to start with a poem called Prayer. I knew I wasn't going to be able to. Okay. Prayer. Lord, let me hand you my body, my burden. It's yours. What will you do with it? My bones have gone to gravel under weight. I loved her body I loved her body as it grew broad, spilled forward, filled in its loosened skin, filled in with new found weight. We stayed at the bar too late. We ate with relish, chorizo, syruped with figs. I put my cheek against the fat of her belly. It felt cool. I felt light, as if I had risen, taken a form, yet to be baked. I'd stomached every pill I was asked to take. Some filled my gut with a hunger I couldn't sate. So sick from other pills, I halved or quartered meals, misplaced 109 pounds of weight. Women who barely knew me said, "You're so thin, so pretty, so lucky, you've lost a person. It's so, 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 so great." She fed my body. She loved me as I grew plump again, shed my wrinkled skin slowly like heartache. My breasts so heavy, I thought they'll burst. So my breasts so heavy in her hands. Can a body burst? I think a body can. I've known its juice. Pills tricked my brain into a motherhood without fruit. I made milk and I burst. I thought, what new thing are you, body? What are these droplets in my palm? I thought, taste it. I thought, maybe you'll remember your mother. You must have felt weightless in her arms. She waits for you to call. You hand her your laden days. She bears you. She gained baby weight to bear you. She lost weight. Her muscles grew slack and weak. A woman who knew her well said, "Girl, you're wasting away." My mother said, "They took you from me in the hospital. You didn't know me. You wouldn't feed. It was our very first grief." Don't taste, no, wait for the real thing, the authentic thing. I thought, there will be other milks to taste. There will be the sweet, fat weight of a child my body then refused to make. It was busy, carrying weight. Too late, too late, too late. I ask, is this it? Is this weightlessness? I am weak in my bones from this weight. There is bone in the milk of my knees. Oh, sweet Christ, take half my gut, or half my legs, or half of what's left of my life. You're holding the knife. I thought in the spirit of things tonight, I would read Go North. This is a poem that I wrote for my dad, who traveled from Alabama to Chicago, just at the tail end of the Great Migration. Go north. Picture yourself at the bus station, the sun on the brick of the bank. Imagine real dollars in your pocket, a woolen coat, a satchel full of chicken and pound cake, a slide rule cased in leather. Your mother stands at your back, your Bible still in her handbag, head tilted as if to say, she knows, as if to say, a mother's duty is to be disappointed. Don't worry. Her sister will still meet you in Chicago and show you where to find warmer shoes. You wouldn't believe me if I told you about the cold, how the air will crack and blacken over a park bench at night. Would it matter? You will find work. You will meet a woman. You will linger some days in the doorlight of a church. You will make yourself nearly whole. So, so the next poem that I'm going to read is the title poem to my book. It's called Things I Didn't Do with This Body and Things I Did. I didn't bear a child with it, bear a drunk friend's arm around its shoulders, bear it over a fence in one go, bear it from Harlem to Wall Street by foot, run it until it vomited, run it until it vibrated with joy, lean it long against a redwood it had hiked to, lay it on the earth beneath the aurora borealis, march it white-laced until it wed, march it in Baltimore for a killed Black man, march it to war until it was dead, bear a lover eager on its spine, bear it back to its natal soil, bear it to the lake's center under the swift, awesome power of its legs. Bear witness. I did not make its child. I didn't bear it to the home it asked me for. Instead, as if by stumbling, as if by walking backward even, as if the beginning and the end, and not the end, held the drum and cymbal and jazz hands. I bore 3 lovers in its mouth, bore a blow to its cheek, bore the snap and drag of the Atlantic at high tide, bared its breasts on that beach, scored its ankle with a knife 12 thin times, bored into the white underflesh of its thigh, bore its scars, bore tattoos to cover its scars, bore hot wax where it was tenderest, bore on its face a heavy, pretty face, bore smoke deep in its tissues, bore the soft, bore the love of its family, withheld from it embraces, withheld from it a decent meal, bore love for the boy who refused it, bore the death of the boy who didn't, bore the weight it made from the pills I had handed it, bore its joints' irreparable ache, bore the turned sweet smell beneath its breast, taught water to bear it so I could rest, bore its sloughings, bore its swellings, bore its manifold solitudes, and on the rare keen nights it stayed with me. I bore its bright, fragrant, solitary, intolerable pleasure. So I'm going to read a few newer poems that I've written. This first one is called Perimenopause May Cause. Is that a man opening a gate or a bird skittering on my rooftop? Is the bird's mouth open? Does a bird have a mouth? No,
A beak. Does it speak? Does it sing? I try to say song, I say poem. I try to say poem, I say perfume. Did I keep my mother's Chloe, the scent of my mother's dress, in 1986? Where did I store the Chloe? I try to say safe, I say stay. No sad, no stone, no song, no grace. I'm trying to say grace. It's funny to call me Granny. When my mother said Greg, she meant Ken. When my mother said both, she meant me. I change my words like a mother. I never was a mother. I want to say closet, I say jar. My universe is invented. No, my uterus is inverted. No, my cycle is now inverted. A door stands ajar. What was the laundry about? Did I do the weather on Sunday? I want to say Sunday, but Christ. I wanted to say Christ. A clear mind, a clear mind. I misplace my thoughts like a person entering a womb with a question. I know how to start a movie. Why can't I start the movie? Somebody start the movie. This next one is called Good. It's not the mother in the cereal aisle I fear. Human jungle gym to 3 babies who cry, tip boxes onto the linoleum floor, the 4 of them so tired, so far beyond what is reasonable. Her arm lifting, ready to swing wide, that right hand of hers palming the most garden variety annihilation. I am childless. Aren't the childless always better mothers? My mother says she kept her cool. She learned to receive our demands, check her steno pad and say, no, not on the list today. Sorry, no frosted mini Count Choco Puffs. The list says Raisin Bran. She answered questions, managed want, gamely accepted all comers. Our cast-off, hard-faced dolls, our sweat-through coats, our breathless reports, all those and thens, our father's monotone complaints. This afternoon at the cookout, a 4-year-old runs the short, grassy lane per the rules of a made-up game, shrieking all the way from the hose to the table where the adults gather. My friend, her mama, besides me, interrupts herself to gaze approvingly at the small hands offered miraculous and wet. Mama doesn't fret over wet salmon Oshkosh, the wet feet pressing into, then sucking out of the doomed iridescent sneakers. Her smile reaches lavishly her eyes. Her lips paused on a thought. She has learned the trick of suspension. My friend is holding wet objects in her hands, a dark rock, a garden statuette of a toad, a tiny stick bursting green with buds. Oh, my most patient, nodding mother, didn't you teach me a woman must receive, receive? I wouldn't hold any of it. I couldn't. How she terrifies me, this mama, her easy and efficient love. I can't remember your eyes, but even when you said no, you must have looked just like her. Um, this is the last poem I'm going to read. Sorry. This is it's an elegy that I wrote for my former partner who passed away 4 years ago, which seems impossible. It's called Girls' Day Elegy. It has nothing to do with you that she shares your name, my new friend, with whom tomorrow I will hie off to wine country. Neither of us drinks, it bores her. And the way you went, darling, I won't touch the stuff. I live in the state of California, beside a bush lit with hummingbirds, who drink as if these were the earth's last sugars. Everything tastes different. I eat pineapple-flavored edibles. I scent my rooms with tonka and peppermint. My friend and I take our girls' day without her husband or kids, without my solitudes. We climb nude into a bath of chunky, slime-slick clay. Side by side, we shower, dig out from our vaginas blood like clots of peat. Mineral heat unlocks the wooden drawer of our complaints. What we give, what we take but shouldn't take. We talk like girlfriends. I mean, the other kind. I loved you terribly. Summer mornings, breast to breast, in the icy sound. I'd shiver to shore, you'd swim alone, farther than farther, so perilous out. Can you see me through the loose strumming of the waves? I have left the window open for you. Do you know to find me? She's good company, good-humored, real, has a gift for listening, for ease. From time to time, I get to say your living name.
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. And can we give one more round of applause to all of our readers for tonight? And if you're interested, we're selling merch and all of our books, and also the readers will be signing books after this is done. And if you could all help us by folding up your chair and putting it on the wall, that would be wonderful. Thank you. This concludes our reading.